By the time you wake up on April 5th, the energetic matrix of your life will have already begun rewriting itself. You clicked on this video because for the past several weeks, you have been physically feeling it. This inexplicable, building pressure deep inside your chest that you cannot name and cannot shake. Something is shifting. Something underneath everything you can see is cracking open, and you have felt it in your bones long before any astrologer told you to pay attention. Most popular astrologers will tell you that the upcoming Sun-Jupiter square is simply a lucky day. A day of good vibes, big energy, and expanded fortune. And yes, that is technically true. But they are leaving out the part that changes everything. What they are not telling you is the full picture. They are not talking about why this specific square, on this specific date, in these specific signs, is something your soul has been waiting for across multiple lifetimes. And if you walk into April 5th without understanding what is truly at work, you will either overshoot it entirely or completely underestimate the magnitude of what just landed in your lap. This is not a gentle nudge from the universe. This is a full-scale cosmic recalibration, the kind that does not happen gently or quietly, the kind that arrives and demands that you stop pretending the old version of your life still fits. In this video, I am going to walk you through what this transit actually does to you, not the watered-down version, but the real code underneath it. I will explain why your reality feels like it is splitting in two right now, what the sky is genuinely asking of you over these 48 hours, and the single most important step you can take before this window closes. Stay with me through every minute of this, because the second you understand what is truly happening, everything will begin to make sense. Let us begin with the astronomy, because the facts here are extraordinary and they deserve to be treated that way. On April 5th, 2026, at approximately 6:22 in the evening Eastern Time, the Sun, traveling through Aries at approximately 15 degrees, forms an exact 90-degree angle, what astrologers call a square, to Jupiter, sitting at approximately 15 degrees of Cancer. This is what we call a hard aspect, meaning it generates friction, tension, and the kind of pressure that forces things to move. Now here is where it gets genuinely unusual. Both of these planets are currently in the signs of their exaltation. The Sun is exalted in Aries. That means the Sun is operating at full power, radiating identity, clarity, and fierce purpose with no dilution. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. That means Jupiter, the planet of expansion, abundance, and higher wisdom, is also operating at its absolute maximum potency. Think of it this way. Imagine two master chefs, each one at the peak of their craft, each one working in their favorite kitchen, each one fully in their element. But instead of cooking the same meal, they are working in two different kitchens separated by a wall, and they are both trying to use the same kitchen at the same time. That is your Sun-Jupiter square on April 5th. Two enormous forces, both operating at full strength, both pulling your life in directions that matter deeply, and the tension between them is the actual catalyst. The Sun in Aries is asking you to be bold, to step forward, to claim your individual identity, to stop waiting for permission to become who you have always known you were meant to be. Jupiter in Cancer is simultaneously asking you to go inward, to nourish your roots, to honor your emotional needs, to invest in your home, your family, and the deep foundation of who you are. On the surface, these might sound contradictory: push forward and go inward. But this is exactly the paradox this transit is handing you, and learning to hold both truths at once is how you unlock the gift inside the tension. Have you been feeling this pull in two directions lately? One part of you ready to leap, another part of you craving stillness and safety? That is not confusion. That is the sky doing exactly what it is designed to do at this moment in your evolution. To truly understand what April 5th is bringing, it helps to look back at moments in history when Jupiter in Cancer was at the height of its power. When Jupiter was last exalted in Cancer in 2013 and 2014, we saw a profound cultural shift across the United States and the Western world around questions of home, belonging, and what we call family. It was the period that launched the tiny house movement into the mainstream, when millions of Americans began questioning whether the traditional model of accumulating more space, more things, and more obligations was actually making them happier. It was the moment when the conversation about what makes a life meaningful began shifting from achievement and acquisition toward connection and sufficiency. Something deep in the collective heart began asking, what do I actually need? And what have I just been told to want? Going further back, when Jupiter transited Cancer in 1989 and 1990, the world was experiencing one of the most dramatic reorganizations of home and homeland in the 20th century. The Berlin Wall fell. Families separated for decades by borders were reuniting. Hundreds of thousands of people were literally rebuilding their homes, their nations, their identities from the ground up. Jupiter in Cancer, at its most powerful, does not just bring expansion in the abstract. It expands our understanding of where we belong and who we belong to. It asks us to become larger in our emotional lives, not just in our external circumstances. And in the late 1970s, when Jupiter moved through Cancer against a backdrop of deep national uncertainty in the United States, there was another quiet but powerful cultural movement taking root. Women in their 40s and 50s, many of them the first generation to have entered the workforce in significant numbers, were beginning to ask questions their mothers had never been given permission to ask. Who am I when I am not defined by my role? What comes next when the chapter everyone expected me to live is complete? These were Jupiter and Cancer questions, the questions of expanding emotional identity, of redefining home as something you build inside yourself and not just inside four walls. Does any of this feel familiar? It should, because right now, in 2026, with Jupiter at the peak of its exaltation in Cancer, you are part of the same long lineage of women asking the same essential questions. And on April 5th, the sun's powerful beam from Aries is illuminating those questions with a directness and urgency that you may not have felt in years. Here is what I want you to hear very clearly, because this is the part that most astrologers will skip entirely. The tension you are feeling right now is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is not evidence that you have failed to do the inner work, or that you are not spiritual enough, or that you should be further along by now. The restlessness, the sense that your current life does not quite fit, the fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to fully resolve, the nagging feeling that there is a version of yourself you have not yet been able to reach, none of that is failure. All of it is cosmically accurate feedback. Think of this transit like a deep renovation happening inside a house you have lived in for decades. When the renovation starts in earnest, things get messy. The furniture that used to define the rooms has been pushed aside. The walls that felt permanent are being opened up. There is dust and noise and disruption, and for a while, the house feels less like home than it ever did before. But this is not the house falling apart. This is the house becoming what it was always supposed to be. Jupiter in Cancer is the great nourisher of the zodiac. In its exaltation, it is not asking you to work harder. It is not asking you to hustle or push or force. It is asking you to receive. It is asking you to allow the abundance that has been building in the invisible realm of your life to finally cross over into the visible. The square from the Sun in Aries creates the necessary pressure to move that process forward, like a hand pressing gently but firmly on a door that has been stuck too long. This is important for so many of you who have spent the better part of your adult life giving to your children, to your partners, to your careers, to your communities, to everyone in your orbit. You are experts at pouring out. Jupiter in Cancer, at this level of power, is the universe insisting that it is your turn to be filled. Not as a reward you have to earn, not as a prize at the end of a test you have to pass, but as a natural consequence of the cycle completing itself. Have you been waiting a long time for something to shift? Have you been doing the quiet, faithful, unglamorous work of keeping things together, often without much acknowledgement? This transit is seeing you. This sky is seeing you. To understand the full weight of April 5th, we need to talk about what is happening in the background of this sky, because the Sun squaring Jupiter does not exist in isolation. It is happening against one of the most significant and rare planetary configurations of our generation. Saturn and Neptune are both currently in the early degrees of Aries. Saturn entered Aries in February of this year, beginning its first new 28-year cycle since 1996. Neptune entered Aries in January, beginning a brand new 165-year cycle of its own. These two planets, which have entirely different jobs in the cosmos, have been traveling in extremely close proximity to each other, a near conjunction that astrologers have been watching for years. Saturn is the planet of structure, time, discipline, and mastery earned through consistent effort over the long haul. It is the planet of the bones of things, the skeleton that holds everything upright. Neptune is the planet of dreams, spirituality, dissolving boundaries, and the invisible realm where inspiration and vision live before they can be built into form. When these two come together in Aries, the sign of new beginnings, personal identity, and the courage to initiate, something profound becomes possible. The dream begins to have bones. The vision begins to have a structure it can inhabit. What this means for you on April 5th is that the Sun's light from Aries is not just illuminating Jupiter in Cancer. It is illuminating the entire Saturn-Neptune story that has been unfolding in your life since the beginning of this year. The dreams you have been nursing quietly in the background. The long-term vision of yourself that you have not yet dared to speak out loud. The version of your future that part of you believes is possible, and another part of you is afraid to fully claim. The Sun square. Jupiter on April 5th is pushing that entire structure forward, creating the necessary pressure to move it from the realm of dream into the realm of decision. April 5th is the peak of the energy, but the story does not end there. April 6th is what I call the integration day, and it is every bit as important as the peak itself. As the moon moves deeper into Sagittarius on April 6th, it forms a powerful sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. Now, Pluto has been in Aquarius for several years now, slowly and methodically transforming how we connect, how we organize, and how power moves through our collective systems. A sextile from the moon to Pluto creates an unusual opening, a moment of emotional clarity about transformation. The things that have been hiding in the shadows of your inner life, the truths you have been aware of, but not yet ready to fully face, the realizations that have been assembling themselves in your subconscious without your permission. These things have a remarkable tendency to surface on days when the moon makes this kind of contact with Pluto. Not violently, not catastrophically, but with the quiet, undeniable authority of something whose time has finally come. On this same day, the moon in Sagittarius is in a square to the lunar nodes, with the north node in Pisces and the south node in Virgo. Think of the lunar nodes as the axis of your karmic journey in this lifetime. The north node points toward where your soul is being called to grow, toward the unfamiliar territory that holds your highest potential. The south node points toward the patterns, habits, and comfort zones you have outgrown, the ones that feel safe precisely because they are familiar, even when they no longer serve you. A square to the nodes is what astrologers call a karmic crossroads. It is a moment when the past and the future are both pulling on you with equal force, and you are standing in the middle, being asked to choose. Not with drama, not with a grand announcement, but with a single, quiet, internal decision. Am I going to keep doing what is comfortable and familiar, or am I going to trust the direction my soul has been trying to show me? The moon also squares Mercury in Pisces on this day, creating a slight tension between what your emotions are telling you and what your logical mind is processing. This is not a problem to be solved. It is an invitation to stay with the feeling long enough to understand what it is actually communicating before rushing to the quick analytical answer. Let us get specific, because spiritual wisdom that does not land in your actual lived experience is just beautiful noise. The first area this transit is directly addressing is your relationship with your family and the concept of home. Not just the physical home you live in, but the emotional and psychological home you carry inside yourself. Jupiter in Cancer, at peak exaltation, is fundamentally about roots. It is asking you to look honestly at the relationships in your family system that have shifted, grown, or become complicated. If your children have grown up and moved away, if the house feels different than it once did, if the role that used to define you, mother, caretaker, the one who holds everything together, is no longer as central as it was, this transit is not asking you to grieve that as a loss. It is asking you to understand it as a graduation. Saturn in Aries is literally writing new boundaries into the architecture of your identity, and the Sun squaring Jupiter is providing the light to see where those new boundaries want to live. The second area is your relationship with money and material security. I want to speak to this gently but directly, because so many of you have been carrying a quiet anxiety about financial stability that you have not given yourself permission to fully acknowledge. Jupiter in Cancer, in its highest expression, is one of the most powerful placements for building lasting material security rooted in genuine values rather than fear. When Jupiter is exalted and the Sun illuminates it from Aries, it creates a window for abundance that is real and actionable. But the key word is roots. The abundance that becomes available under this transit is not the flashy, risky, swing for the fences kind. It is the deep root kind, the kind that grows slowly and holds firm. If you have been tempted recently by financial decisions that feel urgent and dramatic, this transit is also a caution to breathe before leaping. The Sun squaring Jupiter carries a well-known shadow, the tendency to overestimate what we can handle, to bite off more than we can comfortably chew. The invitation is to think bigger, yes, but to build on solid ground. The third area is your body and your energy reserves. So many women moving through this season of life, the mid-40s, the 50s, the early 60s, come to me carrying a kind of grief about their physical energy. They remember what their bodies used to be able to do. They compare themselves to younger women and feel like something has been taken from them. I want to offer you a completely different frame for what is happening. Jupiter in Cancer, at this level of power, governs the body's internal nourishment systems. The shift in physical energy that many of you are experiencing is not the body failing. It is the body redirecting. The energy that used to power the external expression of who you were is being rerouted to power the internal development of who you are becoming. This is not loss. This is alchemy. Now let us talk about what you can actually do with all of this, because awareness without direction is just beautiful theory. First and most importantly, slow down on April 5th itself. I know that might feel counterintuitive when I have been describing an energy of expansion and forward movement. But Sun square Jupiter has a tendency to make everything feel bigger, more urgent, and more certain than it actually is. The overconfidence of this transit is its greatest shadow. The person who has been waiting to make a bold move for years can easily tip over into making a move that is too bold too fast, with too little grounding. The gift of the transit is available without forcing anything. Breathe into the sensation of expansion rather than immediately rushing to act it out. Second, on the evening of April 5th, when the moon moves into Sagittarius, take 20 minutes to write. Not a structured journal entry, not a productivity exercise, but free writing. Write about the version of your life that your soul has been quietly imagining. The one you sometimes catch glimpses of in the early morning before the demands of the day crowd in. The vision you have been almost afraid to write down, because writing it down makes it real, and real things can fail. On April 5th, with Jupiter at peak power and the sun illuminating it from the sign of courage, write it down anyway. Third, on April 6th, the integration day, practice the art of not rushing. The moon's contact with Pluto will surface insights that require time to metabolize. If something comes to your awareness that surprises you, give it room before you react. The moon's square to Mercury means your emotions and your logic may feel temporarily out of sync, and that is fine. Sit with the emotion first. The clarity will follow. And if there are conversations in your family or relationship circle that have been waiting for the right moment, waiting until you felt ready, waiting until the energy was right, the 24-hour window from April 5th to April 6th carries an unusual grace for exactly those kinds of honest exchanges. Not confrontations, conversations. The kind where both people say what they have been quietly carrying, and something shifts in the space between them. There is a reason you were born in the generation you were born in. There is a reason you have been carrying the specific experiences you have carried, the chapters of service and sacrifice, and showing up for others, the periods of exhaustion and the moments of unexpected grace. There is a reason that the particular version of cosmic weather we are in right now, this extraordinary convergence of Jupiter at the height of its power in the sign of emotional depth, and home, Saturn and Neptune, rewriting the very structure of dreams and discipline in Aries, Pluto slowly transforming the collective foundations of human connection in Aquarius. There is a reason all of this is happening in the precise window of your life when you are old enough to understand it and still young enough to build something beautiful with it. The Sun square Jupiter on April 5th is not asking you to become someone new. It is asking you to claim who you have always been. The woman who has been quietly accumulating wisdom through every single thing she has survived and navigated and loved her way through. the woman who has been operating at capacity for so long that rest began to feel like a character flaw. The woman who has been waiting, sometimes without even knowing what she was waiting for the universe to confirm that her instincts were right all along. Consider this your confirmation. Jupiter in Cancer, in full exaltation, is the cosmos providing nourishment at the deepest possible level. Not because you earned it on a merit chart, not because you scored high enough on a spiritual test, but because nourishment is what living things require to complete their growth. You have been in a growth process, a profound one, and this transit is part of how it gets fed. Have you felt lately as though you were standing at a threshold? As though something old was clearly ending, but the new thing had not yet made itself fully visible? That sensation is not anxiety. That is the accurate perception of someone standing exactly at the right place at the right time. Before I close, I want to leave you with something you can carry into this transit in a way that is practical and grounding. Tonight, or on the morning of April 5th, I want you to take one quiet minute, and I mean truly quiet, phone down, eyes closed, one hand on your heart, and I want you to speak these words either aloud or in the privacy of your own mind. I am not behind. I am right on time. That is it. 7 words. But if you say them slowly and let them land in your body, in the specific places in your chest and your belly, where you have been quietly storing all the should-haves and the not-yets and the why hasn't this happened yet, you may be surprised by what releases. You are not behind. The timeline you have been measuring yourself against was never yours to begin with. It was assembled from other people's expectations and cultural scripts written for a different kind of life. The Jupiter timeline, the one the cosmos has been operating on all along, has always been calibrated precisely to your soul's actual journey. In the comments below, I want you to write one word or one short phrase in the first person that captures the energy you are choosing to step into with this transit. Something like, I receive, or I am ready, or I trust my timing. Your words in the comments are a declaration to the universe, and declarations made during a Jupiter exaltation carry extraordinary weight. Write your word, mean it, and let the sky do what it has been setting up to do. Please subscribe, because on April 9th, I will release a video about the most important cosmic shift of this season, and you need to be prepared.